Ah, the Elimination Chamber, the jungle gym of death. It's one of WWE's most successful original match creations, skirting the right side of convoluted, over the top, and intimidating to create something that feels really, very truly WWE. And the matches at the Chamber's house have a pretty good track record too, with huge memorable moments strewn throughout its history. Shawn Michaels' final world title win was a holy sh**, has that guy just himself moment. Edge winning and losing world titles in the same night. Bobby Lashley picking up the ECW title. Loads of classics. However, every action does have an equal and opposite reaction, so for every great match or fantastic spot in the Elimination Chamber, there will always be a big old Shawn Michaels tight stinking dud or a brutal botch. I wanted a list about people falling down, and I always get what I want. I'm Laurie, hailing from partsFUNknown, and these are the 10 craziest Elimination Chamber botches. Number 10, Kalisto gets stuck. Elimination Chamber 2015. The top of an Elimination Chamber pod is prime real estate for a high-flying wrestler. It's like the Mayfair on a Monopoly board, although actually maybe the top of a ladder is the Mayfair, so this can be like Parkway, or wherever's the second highest on your regional variant board, mostly American viewership. Dollarington, North Carolina. I don't know. With high risk comes high reward, but also a much greater velocity at which to crash and burn, as Kalisto found out in the first ever tag team Elimination Chamber match in 2015. Kalisto's Lucha Dragons partner Sin Cara's botch luck clearly rubbed off in the pod, as when he was scaling the New Day's pod for a cool spot where they sort of dragged his feet through the chains on the top to trap him, they actually just trapped Kalisto for realsies. He then could not get himself free for a good few minutes, missing a spot with Sin Cara where they were meant to hit stereo swanton bombs off their pods and leaving his fellow dragon to fly alone. Number 9. Most of the men's tag chamber match, Elimination Chamber 2020. The second men's tag team Elimination Chamber match in history was definitely a better match than its predecessor overall, but boy, was it a sloppy affair. There wasn't one great big snafu that defined this match, but more a comedy of errors that led to lots of people falling down. The best part of any list. Gran Metalik tried his best to hit a springboard Hurricane Rana on Big E, but just couldn't get there. Kofi Kingston and Jey Uso went for mirrored super kicks, but just kind of got tied up and fell down. And John Morrison also went for a springboard and then just simply fell down. If only this was where the Jackass Forever sponsorship had come in. It's the perfect advert. No shade though, because there is loads going on in an Elimination Chamber match with just 6 people involved, and doubling that total leaves you with a whole lot of moving parts. I mean, it's at least 6, 7, 8, carry that. At least it's like 10 moving parts. Number 8, Sarah Logan wipes out Natalya, Elimination Chamber 2020. Hey guys, do you want to see a dead body? Now, the women's chamber match in 2020 is most remembered for Shayna Baszler running through everyone in the one good thing they ever did for her on the main roster. Those absolute bloody idiots. But before Baszler broke out of her pod and munched her way through the competition like the Cookie Monster at Bake Sale, a terrifying moment occurred between Sarah Logan and Natalya. Logan was the third woman to enter the match, joining Ruby Riott and Natalya, and after some brief offense, Logan scaled a pod and leapt off to hit a high cross on Ruby and Nattie. All things considered, this is actually a pretty safe spot 9 times out of 10. However, this was the 1 out of 10, because the brunt of Logan's body collided with Ruby, leaving her knees to collide with Nattie's face. Lights out. Honestly, it's a wonder Natalya even managed to finish the match after that, because that looked like a knockout blow. They should call that the go to sleep and don't come back. Number 7, Sasha Banks no-sells the Twisted Bliss, Elimination Chamber 2018. Going to the top of the pod has not worked out well for the folks on this list so far, so let's see if we can change that. Can we bollocks? Because yet another example of Elimination Chamber airtime going badly happened during the first ever Women's Elimination Chamber match in 2018. Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks were 2 of the standout performers, and everything built up to what would have been the biggest spot of the match as Bliss was perched on top of a pod. She hit probably the biggest Twisted Bliss of her entire career in what surely would have won her the match and earned her ticket to WrestleMania, except it didn't. Because Sasha Banks took the full force of the move, then she no-sold it, turned Bliss over, and locked in the Banks statement. I reckon what was supposed to happen was sort of a seamless roll-through as the Twisted Bliss hit, essentially countering it into the Banks statement, but here it just looked like Alexa used Twisted Bliss, it doesn't affect Banks-type Pokemon. It was a great idea, but the execution resulted in the biggest move of Bliss's career to that point, essentially being no-sold. Number 6, WWE opens the wrong door, Survivor Series 2002. 2. Now this certainly isn't the most famous mistake to come from the first ever Elimination Chamber match. We will get there. It is a marathon, not a sprint, my friends. Now the first Chamber match ended up being a much better match than you would expect when you hear about all of the trouble that the competitors went through, but when you watch it, you just don't know that that's happening. Now Shawn Michaels ended up being the final man to enter the match, but this was not by design. Chris Jericho later revealed that Kane's pod was accidentally opened early in the place of Michaels. You wouldn't know it from watching the match because the guys are serious pros, but it meant that all the work they had done to carefully plan out Michaels' spots had to go out of the window, and a good chunk of the match had to be called on the fly. Essentially, it's a very frustrating day for Raw's finest, made even worse by finding out they would be bumping on metal grate for half an hour. I mean, someone had to do it first before they could make it, you know, ever so slightly safer, but not by much. Number 5. The Undertaker falls out of the chamber. No Way Out 2008. Sometimes things go wrong to such an extent that your suspension of disbelief just disbeliefs itself mid-match. Now, one of the competitors falling out of the cage certainly qualifies. At No Way Out 2008, 6 SmackDown and ECW stars competed for a shot at Edge's World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. During the match, Viscera managed to headbutt Taker so hard that he stumbled backwards, he hit the cage door, and then the door opened and he fell out to the floor, much to the surprise of everyone. Oh, the door's open. Why are we in here? Why are we in here again? What are we doing? Undertaker tumbled to the floor, doing his best to catch himself on anything around him, but this was a nasty spill. Thankfully though, Taker wasn't injured from the fall, but the same could not be said for Ranjin Singh. Just a few minutes later, as Undertaker booted him through the door, he planted his knee on the concrete, tearing his ACL and taking him off TV for several months. There's a cheeky little bonus botch in there for you. Number 4. Test eliminates Bob Holly, December to Dismember 2006. The entire Extreme Elimination Chamber could find its way onto this list for being one of the biggest disasters to ever grace a wrestling ring. The booking appeared to be designed to piss off as many people as possible. It came at the end of WWE's worst pay-per-view ever, and then there were moments like this. Test and Bob Holly, main event caliber stars if you ask me, were working as sort of a makeshift team until Test decided that no they weren't and tried to hit Bob Holly with a big boot. Test goes for the pin and the ref counted 1. The ref counted 2. The ref did not count 3. Bob Holly did not kick out. They then just all look at each other before saying, okay now Bob, get out now. What even went wrong here, guys? This match did not need a monumentally botched elimination to be terrible, but on this show, for some reason, when it rains, it pours. Number 3, WWE sets The Undertaker on fire. Elimination Chamber 2010. So this one may not have happened inside the Elimination Chamber itself, but walking to the ring is close enough when the botch is this big. When The Undertaker's famous entrance theme hits, you can always think to yourself as a wrestling fan, I mean, he's probably going to be about 5 minutes. I can go to the bathroom, I can make a sandwich, and oh god, why is he running? Why is he running? That is a real dick in a zipper moment if you ain't expecting it, folks. The botch has been edited out of the network version of the match, but you can still see fan footage of The Undertaker making his entrance like he always does, only to be completely engulfed in flames. Not once, not twice, but thrice. Considering that then The Undertaker had to complete an entire Elimination Chamber match with a charred chest where Chris Jericho was going to have to press said charred chest to the mat, this is a legendary performance for the dead man. Number 2, Rob Van Dam crushes Triple H's throat, Survivor Series 2002. And now we've come back around to the first ever Elimination Chamber match. Now Triple H may have turned a good portion of the internet against him throughout his career, but no one can deny that the man is a tough son of a bitch who competes through injury better than most can dream of. Now Rob Van Dam's 5-star frog splash has been described as painful on the best of days. Unfortunately for Triple H, this was the worst of days. It was the blurst of times. It blurst all of the blood vessels in his neck. Rob Van Dam climbed to the top of the pod and in a very cramped, tight space hit Triple H with a frog splash. Now the only problem was that RVD landed with his leg on Triple H's neck, essentially crushing his throat with over 25 minutes left in Triple H's night. And he'd already spat his water out by that point. There was nothing there to soothe the pain. This is honestly a heroic performance from Hunter, battling through to the end of the match when breathing must have been his biggest opponent. Number 1, the entire Intercontinental Chamber match, Elimination Chamber 2015. There really isn't one specific place to start or stop with the madness that was the Intercontinental Championship Elimination Chamber match from 2015. This match managed to somehow be a bigger bigger disaster than the Extreme Elimination Chamber match, its only saving grace is that it was not at December to Dismember. Things go off the rails in a hurry here when Mark Henry's pod is rammed and he enters the match before he was supposed to. Henry is clearly quite unsure what to do and just sort of stands there awkwardly before joining the match, and things never quite get back on track. You can actually hear Dolph Ziggler loudly trying to coordinate spots with the entire field while absolutely nothing is taking place, and each man just sort of stands there motionless like this is their first ever indie match. Then you got the issue of Sheamus's pod not opening. With the pod not opening, the referees and Sheamus yell at each other while they're unable to get the door open before Sheamus kneels down and tries to make it seem like he rigged the door to stay shut by jamming it with his cross. In another match, this thinking may be looked at as creative, but the last thing this match needed was another thing going wrong. And that is our list. Are there any Elimination Chamber botches we missed? What's the most expensive spot on your Monopoly board? Why not watch another video? They're on screen now. Or don't. I don't care. I'm not your dad. Jam that jam.